And probably they shouldn't be, because if they do get that way, then they're probably blind to something, or quite a lot of things. Okay? And the bigger the organisation it is, the harder it is to keep everybody happy with the culture. Okay? But you just have to impose it and ask everybody to live by it. Now, one of the reasons for the success of IKEA, has everybody heard of IKEA? Okay, you've got IKEA over in America, haven't you? Yeah? Well, it's a very interesting story, IKEA, but Kamprad, who was the founder of IKEA, if you do anything for IKEA, once I audited one of their subsidiaries, and when you go there for the first time, the person from IKEA says, "Is this your first time working with IKEA?" And you say, "Yes, it is. It's my first day." And they say, "Well, grab yourself a coffee and please take a seat here, and there's a little book I'd like you to read." And they give you something called Testimonial of a Furniture Maker, written by Ingmar Kamprad. And before you can do anything with IKEA or IKEA people, they want you to understand their culture. Okay? And it's not just, of course, if you are an employee of that company, you've got to live by that. But even if you go in as an auditor, which means you're supposed to be independent, as those of you who study accountancy know, you've still got to be aware of their culture. And they will not deal with you until you've read Testimonial of a Furniture Maker. You think that's strange? BP, sorry to swear, because I know that you're all Americans, but BP, okay, also has, and even more so since what happened last year, has a set of documents. You're not even allowed to tender to do any work for BP until you've read their ethical guidance. Okay. The sniggering on the side there, I understand. But you're not allowed to do any work for BP until you've read their ethical guidance and can sign off, "I've read it." And every CV that goes into a tender to do anything for BP at all, my CV went sometime in the second half of last year to do something, I won't say what, okay, because if I say an organisation's name, I won't say what I've done with them. Let's say it was clean one of their drains. I don't actually clean drains, but let's say it was. Okay? Everybody that is supposed to work with them, whose name is on the tender, whose CV goes to them, has also got to sign off, "I've read the ethical guide." Don't have to say they agree with it. There's no question of you not agreeing with it. Okay? That's what BP is. And if you work with BP, you must know, you're put on notice that that's what the ethical code is. Yeah? So Kamprad's got this fine ethical code. And of course, they were in the news last year as well, weren't they? IKEA in Russia. Because two of their top men, the two probably top men in Russia, got told, well, these people are caught doing bribes in Russia, and Kamprad sacked them. But he also spoke to the media saying, "When I found out that these two people had taken bribes in my organisation, I cried in my armchair." Yeah? I felt so sorry for him, really. I could imagine this old furniture maker in one of his own IKEA armchairs. Probably not very old because they don't last that long. Crying tears of sadness that after 20 years of unsullied, non-bribing business in Russia, sorry, two people got caught taking bribes and had to be sacked. But let me tell you this: in Russia, okay, you can see my portfolio there in front of you. You know that I know what I'm talking about. You don't go 20 years in business and not take bribes, okay? That's different in Russia. It's like imagine you heard Cambrad saying, when I heard that somebody had, in my American firm, had paid some taxes, I cried in my armchair. Yeah? It would be kind of like, of course they pay taxes, they were in America. Yeah? So it's the same with the idea of being 20 years in Russia without paying any bribes. It's just, it's fairy stories. Yeah? You just don't get past the door. So it's funny. You've got these organisational culture. What really goes on and what the culture is prescribed to be may differ, but you have documents which state what the culture is supposed to be. And if you actually read the BP documents about their ethical guide, you might really wonder, well, how on earth, given any of that, did anything ever go wrong bad with them? Because after all, what they're describing is utopia on earth. So how did anything happen to that, you know? So those are the three things to take, the main things to take away, but over the next half hour I hope to give you some interesting things to think about as well. First one is famous cultural clashes. I have to refer to my notes because otherwise I won't remember all of them. I noted them down for you. Another one that, staying with IKEA for a moment, Kamprad also famously said, when asked what he thought of Poland, is, I spent a lot of time in Poland and quite seriously they drove me to drink. Yeah? Which is not the best thing to be quoted on, yeah, because people, well, I don't want to end up getting sued, of course, but some people do say that, well, maybe I won't go down that alley.
Do it.
Do it? Well, some people say that he has a problem with drink, but it's only an allegation, okay? I'm not saying that. But, in Poland it didn't go down very well that he was stereotyping the Poles as people that didn't do business without drinking. Yeah? Even Russia, I'll admit, you can do business without drinking vodka. You can always say, you know, you can pretend to be an alcoholic who's trying to, you know, get back into normal life again, and they'll say, oh, I quite understand, and then they'll grip the vodka away again. They don't want to cause you to stumble, you know. So you can always, if you say I'm a recovering alcoholic, you can always get away with not drinking even in Russia. But if you say I can't bribe you because I'm a recovering alcoholic, then I'll say, well, go and be one elsewhere. So well-known misunderstandings. Péchinet. Everybody heard of Péchinet? Well, it's a French company. It's in aluminium, it's in steel, it's in a whole bunch of things. It went on the New York Stock Exchange. It was one of these early ones in this drive for European companies to appear on the New York Stock Exchange. But analysts weren't happy because in typical French style they were trying to get into everything. Yeah? And they said, you know, they were getting messages, or analysts were sort of trying to say, well, you know, we don't need here in New York for you to be all diversified. Our investors know how to diversify for themselves, thank you very much. What's your core business? We need to concentrate on what your core business is. Yeah? Sorry, that's my attempt at an American accent, it's not very good. But, oh, that's what he was doing. So you get the chief of Péchinet going with his broken English. He's a Frenchman, and he says to all of the analysts, he gets a room like this full of analysts or people from all the financial press. You've got all the, you know, Harvard Business Journal there. You've got your Wall Street Journal. You've got all of the rest of them all sitting around with serious faces, waiting for the chairman of Péchinet to say what the core business is. Yeah? And he says, I have one message for you today. And that message is to focus, focus, focus. So that went down as one of the most well-known misunderstandings in the history of business. Famous misunderstandings include Chevrolets, cars, okay? Chevrolet's Nova. Anybody know this one? The Chevy Nova. Yeah?
Yeah, they introduced that in Mexico.
Exactly.
Nova means it doesn't go.
Yeah, that's right. Well done. Yeah. So that was a big problem. Even worse, though, was the Mitsubishi car, the Pacero. Yeah. I'm getting also nods from Christine. She wonders how far I'm going to go with this, probably. But basically, Pacero in Mexico also means a gentleman that makes love to himself. So that had to be changed. In Mexico, that is the Mitsubishi Montero. Yeah. Osram bulbs had a problem in Poland. Osram in Polish means I will put shit on you. Nevertheless, they brazened it out, and Osram is a name. You know, they kind of said, "Oh well, don't worry about it. Just go with the flow." You know. So. So Osram bulbs are still for sale in Poland, even though Philips has got rather more these days because they've got the energy lighting, energy producing ones, and they make them in Piła in Poland. But you don't even have to cross languages to get these misunderstandings. Electrolux, the Swedish company, they're in this list a couple of times. When they went to the UK with their lovely vacuum cleaners, they wanted to show the power of one of their vacuum cleaning products, but they didn't kind of understand slangy English. They knew their schoolboy English. They knew their English was very good, but it was an academic kind of English. It wasn't the English of the common man. So they came up with this wonderful advertising slogan: "Nothing sucks like an Electrolux." And seriously, that was all over the television before anybody ever mentioned it. And that's absolutely true. So McDonald's learned the hard way. Okay, about multiculturalism. Yeah, they had a pretty good idea that hamburgers wouldn't go down too well in the Islamic world. They knew that much. They were surprised that beef burgers didn't go down too well in India. But when they really got into the Eastern cultures, they thought, well, you know, when we're getting into places like Hong Kong, when we get, you know, these Far East places, we have to think about Ronald McDonald, because everybody's calling him Roland McDonald, and people can't say Ronald in the East, so they're not saying, you know, they're coming up with things like Lonard and what have you, and they can't say Ronald. So what we're going to call him is, we're going to call him Donald McDonald, and that will be easier for them to say. So what they did was they had the same character, this white-faced clown, yeah, sitting outside the restaurants, you know, large as life on, you know, plastic versions of him on park benches outside the restaurants and everything, welcoming people in, or life-size images of him, you know, with his white face, welcoming people into the restaurant. And but he was Donald McDonald. What they omitted to understand was, in East Asian culture, the white face is the death mask. It's the image of death. Yeah. So what they effectively were saying was this: come here, yeah, and taste our hamburgers and die. Yeah. Greeks have a similar problem with the London Underground. The London Underground has a nice big round circle and a bar going across it, which is, of course, theta. Yes, so you will have your frats, and they've all got Greek letters in. So theta or theta, yeah. That's the first letter in the Greek word thanatos, which means death, and it's a symbol of death in Greek. Okay, so again, that's another one. And for example, with Greeks it happens the whole time. You've got a company in Poland called Heja. They do mobile phones, yeah, and they call themselves Heja, yeah. Whatever that means, that's supposed to be a kind of a very slangy way of greeting somebody, yeah. Of course, I mean, in Japanese it means room. Heja is a room, which is fairly inoffensive. So it's they don't mean anything wrong with language there, but their symbol is this great red hand that comes out like that. Yeah? Now, in Turkey, that's relatively rude. In Greek, it's extremely rude. It's called mutsa. The Greeks, by the way, have completely different body language to all the other Europeans. The amount of body language that we get, I'll come on to body language in a separate matter in a second, but the amount of body language you get and what it means varies greatly between even quite close together countries. And one thing that the Greeks do is, if Greeks mean no, they go like that, yeah? Like that. So that means no to Greeks, yeah? Whereas if they say yes, they say ne, which sounds like they're saying no, yeah? Because a lot of languages have ne, even Czech has ne for no, yeah? So it's very difficult when you're dealing with Greeks to know whether they're agreeing with you or disagreeing with you, or saying that such and such can be done or not, or can't be done. In the Japanese, they don't like to say no to you in business. Yeah. So if you're with Japanese people, they when you say, tomorrow can we go to see, the seaside or something, and nobody else wants to go there, they've all got something else to do. They won't say, no, you can't go to the seaside. Yeah. In the Czech Republic, they'd say, no, you can't. Yeah. But yeah, I love it. But in Japan, they'd do this sort of sideways bow of the head and go, it's difficult. Yeah? And then this sort of sideways bow of the head and it's difficult. Yeah? That's no. Okay? If you carry on to progress the point, yeah, then you get considered a boorish foreigner. With the Chinese, if you, the Chinese love to compliment you. Yeah? So all you need to do is know, 3 words of Chinese. Just say ni hao ma, yeah, hello, and the Chinese will already be, oh, your Chinese is very good. Yeah? Of course it's not good, yeah? But that's the kind of thing they like to do. They like to give compliments out. They'll find some way of complimenting you. They might compliment the look of you. They might compliment the clothing or something about you they might compliment. And sorry, yes?
With regard to no, I did some work with Vietnam, and they also don't like to say no, but they don't understand it if you say no to them. So we run a multi-million-dollar project, and they wanted us to buy them some cars.
Yeah.
They wanted some cars, and we said no, we can't buy cars under the rules of our program, and they said okay. And then at the next meeting, the first agenda item at every meeting was, when do we get our cars?
Yeah. Well, this was the interesting thing. What happened? We talk about the Vietnamese, yeah, and that I can understand that. But even between the Americans and the British, thanks to the internet these days, we kind of understand each other, and especially in writing, you can forget if that you're talking to somebody that isn't speaking the same brand of English as yourself. Yeah? But when it was the end of the war, and there was Churchill sitting down with Roosevelt, wasn't it, deciding whether they were going to carry on, whether they were going to march and attack Russia. And Winston Churchill was in favour of trying to take the Allied forces on and go against Stalin. And Roosevelt says, we'll have to table that. Okay? Now, by that, in Roosevelt's English, and I take it American English to this day, that basically means we're not going to do it. Yeah? Which was his very polite way of saying no. I wish he'd said it as clearly as you said no to your Vietnamese people, because Winston Churchill, with British English, even though his mother was American, understood that he was tabling it for discussion. Because in British English, if you table something, you put it on the table for discussion at the board meeting. So Winston Churchill kept coming back to this idea, and was surprised that when Roosevelt looked irritated and said, I told you we weren't going to discuss that really. Yeah? Sorry, that's my attempt at American again. But I had to explain it to you because otherwise you might not understand that I was trying to